I
Well,
just like
there's
struggle.
already. I thought this was a really good idea, and I pitched it to my boss. It's not even about work. I just was like, hey, what if somebody did this? I had this idea. It was following Chat GPT recipes, just random one. There, that's already done. It's already out there. I
Oh
thought I
yeah,
was
for
such a
sure.
fucking big
Fellas,
genius for that shit.
fellas.
Anyway,
We
we
kept
need to get
making the
started.
joke, so I'm now actually doing it. Welcome to Beyond the Screen, the podcast where we talk about film news. We have no legit intro this time because we've made this joke. We have a guest today. I'm your host, Ryan Gum. I'm here with Jake Holtzclaw, as always. We have a special guest this week. We have Jericho Puckett, who is an award-winning screenwriter and a stand-up comic, a guy that we know very near and dear, and we haven't talked to him in a while, so we spent the last hour and a half kind of catching up, and we made the joke that we should just start recording and rolling, and I'm doing it now as an executive order to get this show on the road. So fellas, how are we doing outside of using ChatGPT to potentially give us content for making food or following recipes?
Yeah, if you want the cooking version of this podcast, let us know. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, Beyond the Screen in the kitchen.
I'm
Yeah,
just a
beyond the
Chat
kitchen.
GPT program that you all have. I'm not even a real person.
We'll just ask you what you want cooked, Jericho, and then we'll
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
See how close we get.
See how quickly AI gains sentience.
Well, I mean, it's already at this
Ugh.
point. You just said you are AI, so you've already gained sentience.
It's very true. It's very true.
Well, fellas, this past
Right.
weekend was the Super Bowl. Did you guys watch? What you guys think? This is a big media spectacle, and it was on our screen, so I have every right to ask. This is the second week in a row I get to talk about sports. So, what you guys think of the Eagles and the Chiefs?
I am not a massive football fan. This is my first year really kind of following the NFL. So to me, it was very interesting because it seemed like a preconceived notion that the Chiefs were going to three-peat, and then to watch them not only not three-peat, but really kind of get almost dog walked was very entertaining.
I watched it. I don't watch sports at all, and I was under the impression that everybody wanted the Chiefs to lose, and that's what came about. But I was over at the girlfriend's house, and her dad was just, oh, we're gonna, yeah, he doesn't like either of the teams. He hates both of the teams, but he didn't like the Chiefs more. And he was counting how many times they showed Taylor, which I think there was only once. And then he fell asleep after halftime.
That's just
But
typical dad behavior.
And I remembered that it wasn't before halftime because he was like, who the hell is this? Kendrick Lamar, who? Who's Drake? Yeah, so I had to deal with that.
There was one thing I did find interesting, I don't know if it speaks to anything, was they showed Taylor on screen and she didn't recognize that she was on screen. And the crowd started booing, and you can see her mouth, what's going on.
Yeah.
And they were booing her.
Hey.
Yeah, it's so to go back to your point, Jake, yes, everybody in their football hopes and dreams outside of people from Kansas City were hoping that Philadelphia would win. And to go back to your point, Jericho, the Chiefs played a complete game. The final score of 40-22 does not signify how much of a beating it actually was because of a couple late scores when the Eagles had given up because they were too far in the lead to actually lose at that point. So, yeah, I mean, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum of sports fan. I've been a sports fan my entire life, and I love football and basketball. So I thought I was going to boycott the Super Bowl for my own reasons because I was so frustrated with the NFL and just the Chiefs in general. I'm a petty Bengals fan, but I kept up and I watched it, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It was a good time. Anyway. We're probably here wanting to listen to film news. And now 5 minutes into our recording, we are going to give you what you wish for. As always, we start with segment one, our box office news, excuse me. Dogman hauls in a second straight box office crown in its second week in theaters. The animated family feature nabbed another $13.8 million, bringing its total domestic earnings to $54.1 million. This was a really slow weekend, as you can imagine, as we were just talking about the Super Bowl. Nobody was going out and everyone was ordering pizza. We ordered pizza at 4 o'clock in my household and didn't get it till 9:30. So it was a busy night for Domino's and not for the movie theaters. So as we discussed last week, the film cost around $40 million to produce, not counting promotion or marketing, that being Dogman. And despite a steep 60% decrease in earnings from week 1 to 2, as I just said, cinema has had a really, they've always had a difficult time competing with the Super Bowl on Super Bowl Sunday and the weekend to the Super Bowl. So this number is a bit disingenuous. So kind of keep that in mind when you're thinking about how much it lost. Next week, that number will probably jump up a lot. Internationally, Dogman has earned just under $12 million, bringing its bringing its total to just over $66 million. In second place, Sony Pictures and Spyglass Media's horror comedy Hard Eyes finishes second, earning $8.3 million over the 3-day weekend. This film cost $18 million to produce and is directed by Josh Rubin, with stars Olivia Holt, Mason Gooding, and Jordana Brewster. The film synopsis, for those who don't know, this is its first week in the box office. A masked maniac with glowing red eyes returns every Valentine's Day to terrorize unsuspecting couples. It has a modest B- cinema score. Hard Eyes to me seems a little bit basic, if you will. I know that the B- cinema score is not bad. Like for horror films, I think that's around the average. Maybe B is the average. Very popular genre. But even though this film seems to people seem to like it, I just can't really get behind it. What do you guys think about Hard Eyes, even as a concept?
To me, it does seem like there's been this trend for maybe the last 8 to 10 years. I'm not exactly sure on release dates, and COVID makes that blurry. But it does seem to follow the trend of horror-related movies tied to holidays. Like we had Krampus, and then we had that the Thanksgiving one a couple years ago. I forget the name of that one. This kind of seems to fall in line with it, and it does make me wonder, if this is going to be a continuation of the trend. I've not seen anything about the film in particular, but you had Leprechaun back in the 90s or whatever the name of that movie was, the kind of the famous one.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the next, horror movie they can make about some American holiday?
Yeah, I think I've only ever seen the shorts on TikTok and stuff, and it just seemed like a slasher, like a what is it called, holiday slasher kind of deal. So I thought that the killer looked cool. I mean, it's definitely new. It's not necessarily something I've ever seen before, but it didn't strike me as a non. I mean, I don't like horror movies to begin with, so it didn't strike me as something. It's like, oh yeah, I want to watch that. All I thought was that'd be a cool cosmetic on Dead by Daylight maybe.
Yeah.
And it's likely going to be. I would say that it eventually will get a DLC. So
I saw the mask and I immediately thought of Halloween. It's made the way it is to sell costumes, I guess action figures if you collect those, and yeah, Fortnite skins that's what it felt like to me, which is why it felt, I guess, we've talked at length on this show about film for fun. And this seems like it's just a fun ride for those who like the genre. I do like horror, so maybe I would enjoy this. There's a specific scene, and Josh Rubin, the director, he talked at length about just conceptualizing it and making it a reality, where in the trailer you see, and I don't remember how it happened. It might have been like a harpoon or a gunshot, maybe like a shotgun or whatever. But the camera pulls back through the mouth, through the throat and the mouth of someone who had just gotten, I think they were shot. And it looks dope. It's a really cool looking shot. They go through the back of the neck, through the bullet hole, through the mouth that's open, and then they fall back, and you see they're in a van. And it's a cool shot, right? And these are things that you go and you watch, and it'll be fun. But also at the same time, I don't know. It's just I feel like we get so many of these that they just I don't know. It's just not really my cup of tea, especially when we've gotten this so many times up to this point. Moving down the line, finishing third is fellow box office new lover Love Hurts from Universal. The film stars Ke Huy Quan and is directed by rookie director Jojo Ooh, Buyo. I'm sorry, I completely butchered that, but I cannot pronounce that name. The film earned 5.8 million and has been ripped apart by critics and audiences alike, earning an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes and 55 from Metacritic. The film synopsis, which is Marvin, who is Quan, is a Milwaukee realtor who receives a crimson envelope from Rose, a former partner in crime who he left for dead. He now finds himself thrust back into a world of ruthless hitmen and double crosses that turn his open houses into deadly war zones. Hunted by his brother, a violent crime lord, Marvin must confront the choices that haunt him and the history he never truly buried. Now, if you've kept up with this, there's a lot of media around this film going on, and specifically from Key himself. He talks about how he turned the film down twice before he felt like this was a Jason Statham type, before he finally relented and took it. Maybe he should have listened to his gut and stayed away from this one. Guys, what do you think about just the synopsis?
The synopsis itself does make it sound very, this is bad to say, but student filmy. Like, it doesn't seem like something that would be a large motion picture theatrical release. I did see the trailer for this, and I didn't realize that it was set to be an action film. The trailer alone made me think it was some sort of comedy. So I think that it has led me astray in that way.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the 2021 Bob Odenkirk Nobody movie.
Yeah.
Just seems a lot like docile family man slowly reveals his true character after getting his house burgled by two petty thieves. It's like that is the synopsis for Nobody, and it's kind of the same, just realtor pulled back into the life XYZ. He's a trained, martial artist or whatever, it's just that movie, but now it's got data from the Goonies.
Yeah. Well, like, imagine if Bob Odenkirk was like chipper and all happy, and Ke Quan is like this really like energetic, like lovable, like you want him to be your uncle type. Like, he's such a good guy, and he's that kind of character in the movie until he has to, pull out his black belt and just start, I don't know, surviving at this point. So I don't know. I just, again, film for fun, and so this does look like it's like a fun ride. But I think just the same as we were talking about with Hard Eyes, it's like we've seen this before. First thing I thought of was Nobody was a great example. I got the same vibes, not in terms of like the story, but how I felt about the movie with Beekeeper, which was Jason Statham's last movie. And I did watch Beekeeper, and it wasn't bad. Like, Beekeeper was not terrible, but it was a stereotypical Jason Statham. And I wonder if this would have been better if it was a stereotypical Jason Statham, because there's an audience for that. Like, it's not like I don't know. This is more of a risk to kind of change that archetype. Because, I mean, think about Liam Neeson. People showed up to every Liam Neeson action film because it was Liam Neeson. And I feel like this fits in that category a lot better than it does with Quan as in his quirkiness. I'm happy to see him. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just agreeing.
No, okay, yeah. And I'm happy to see Quan himself get kind of like, this is the continued resurrection of his career. If there's anybody who deserves, he's an Oscar winner and he deserves all of the leading roles, it's him. But also, I feel like his gut told him right from the get, and he didn't really listen.
I do want to ask, you all are much more, and this may be off the beaten path, but to kind of lead into Quan, it seemed to be, as you brought up Liam Neeson, was a lot of people went to theaters for actors, and is that still a thing anymore? Or is Quan kind of reinvigorating that idea of going to see a film simply for the actor instead of going to see a film because of a film?
I don't think Quan, I think you're right. I think it might be coming back. I don't think Quan's quite there yet, but I don't even have one off the top of my head. But who would you go see if someone's in a film, Ryan?
Well, right now, I not me personally, but I can tell you, like, The Rock is that guy right now. Like think about Red One. We talked at length on the show about how Red One, yes, it completely lost a ton of money, but that's because its budget was $250 million. If its budget was $50 million, it would have made money because people went to go see The Rock. I think, to your point, Jericho, I think Liam Neeson kind of, that style of movie has died out a little bit, and maybe this is kind of a return to form. There will always be a B story with an A actor, actress who can elevate the interest in audiences, but I don't know. I just don't think. I think Jake, you made a great point. I don't think Quan is that guy. Like I think like he deserves everything he has, and he is an internet good guy for a reason, you know. But he's not that guy. Like I just don't think that he's someone that you really want to lead your. If you're going to have a story, he's perfect for like amazing storylines. He's not someone like a Liam Neeson, like a Jason Statham, who can lead an action movie because they are who they are. You know, like I don't know. I just don't think that that's who he is as an actor. He's built for bigger roles.
After, I mean, but still, like after what he's done, he's made a resurgence in his career. Whereas I don't remember the last thing he did until I think he was in Loki, and I was like, hey, isn't that? And then now he's popping up 2-3 more times. Then he was in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the title?
Yep.
So then he was in that, and I was like, whoa, he's gotten another. He landed another gig. Now he's got this one, and so he's slowly building up the stardom again. And he could very well become someone that a lot of people want to go see. I don't think it's going to be this film that does it for him, but I think he's well on his way. Now, you gave me some time to think about it. I would probably go see any Jake Gyllenhaal movie. I would go see Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds. These are the guys that I'm literally them, so I'm already there. So those are the ones that I would put my butt in a seat. Jake Gyllenhaal doing anything that's remotely sad or grim. I'm there.
I want to clarify, when I say Quan isn't him, I don't mean as in he's not got the ability or doesn't have the star power. I just mean he doesn't fit the archetype. I think that he is so much better like suited for dramatic stories. I think he's so much better suited for comedies. I don't think he's an action star. Sorry, go ahead, Jericho.
No, it was just I really agree. Like I said, I thought watching the trailer, it popped up, and I was like, oh, this seems like a really cool comedy. And then to learn that it's not a comedy kind of puts a sour taste in your mouth, because I feel like I don't want to, shoehorn somebody into a single genre, but I do think certain actors excel in genres, and I feel like he would be perfectly suited for comedies, or maybe as that kind of quirky side character as he is in Loki. Now he has shown that he can be a main character. He can do it. He has the rap for that, but I do think he may need to go in the action route. He's going to need a hit to follow that up.
Yeah. So, like, also, for example, someone that I know my mom would probably be in the seats for, it goes back, it's like the Ghostbusters cast. Like, the whole Ghostbusters, the women's cast in the 2016 Ghostbusters, Melissa McCarthy, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones. My mom is in a seat. You put those three women into a script, she's there. And so there are, when was the last time Melissa McCarthy was in something? I mean, I'll look through it really quick.
Yeah.
She was in a TV series in 2024, and a movie I've not heard of, The Little Mermaid. She was Ursula in 2023 Little Mermaid. Didn't even know that. But I'm sure my mom watched it.
Oh yeah, and
So-
there will always be those kinds of people. I think that I'm going to move on after this. I just think Quan, not to typecast, I don't want to necessarily say just comedy, but I think he's such a good dramatic actor. I think that in more, like, if you think about like what a theatrical play would entail with the story arcs, I think that he is better suited for that. I just think that this film in particular is not playing to his strengths, and I don't think he elevates the story just by him being in it, like a Jason Statham, like a like a Sly, whoever, insert action star here type. So I don't know. The point that I agree with, that I think we've kind of gotten here, is that he probably should have avoided this one, but he's here. It's great to see him get leading roles, and hopefully he continues to land them, and that this one doesn't push away his budding stardom in the later part of his career. Rounding out the top 5, Disney's Mufasa finishes 4th, continuing a really strong stretch. It earned another $4 million, bringing its domestic total to over 235, and its global over to 671, eyeing a $700 million haul as it continues a strong stretch. This is a little bit of a side note, but it's something we've been keeping track of for a really long time. Jake, it's over. It's officially done. With this $235 million mark domestically, Mufasa surpasses Sonic 3 on all counts. There is nowhere that Sonic does anything more than Mufasa, other than maybe like critic ratings, and that is just kind of that's not something I can hang my hat on, because Mufasa it beat Sonic in every way you said it would. So congrats, Sir Holtzclaw.
Yeah, it took 8 weeks, Mr.
2
Gum. It
months.
took 8 weeks. You want to talk about the long game, man? I didn't think it would be 8 weeks. I was gonna give it to like 5, 6.
You hit
but
it on the
it's
nose,
like,
though. You really did. You might not have suspected 8 weeks, but you said it would be the long game, and we're 8 weeks later, and here we are. Mufasa surpasses Sonic 3, and man, what a ride that's been. Sonic dropped out of the top 5, by the way. Continue, Jake.
It was rough because I mean the past 2 weeks, past 2 or 3 podcasts we've done, I look at the box office numbers and I'm like, it's right there, man. It's within $1.5 million every single week. It's like, come on, Sonic, just a little bit more, just trip and fall, just let it go by. And this week was it because it earned double what Sonic did this week as well as last week, and that's what pushed it over.
Yeah.
As a unknowing, like I do not watch as many films as I would like to. There was kind of a reputation with live adaptation Disney remakes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that has overturned recently, but this is the first one I can remember hearing about that had a good reputation and was positively received.
So
Is that still the case, or is there one I'm forgetting about, or did they slowly change that? Or
the original Lion King remake was very popular. It made $1 billion, and so I think that's a lot of the reason why Mufasa's doing so well. There's not many other live action remakes that have done well. I think that there are a lot that are about to come out, and some we'll talk about later in the podcast, i.e. Stitch. But I think that overarchingly, and that's something that me and Jake have discussed a little bit on the show, is hey, like, live action remakes haven't really been that successful unless you're Disney, but they're still becoming more and more popular. So yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap around the top 5 real quick, and then I want to ask you guys before we go, because we're way over our normal segment time limit here. Rounding out the top 5 is Warner Brothers' Companion, dropping from last week's $9.3 million to earning only $3 million this week. Again, that might be a disingenuous drop because it was Super Bowl week. So the fact that it's top 5 and still earning $3 million is really an insane jump. This is another film that earned back its production value in a week. So going from, I think it earned just over 10 last week, which was its production value without marketing or promotions, it now sits at a domestic total of 15.5. So when people return to theaters in the next few weeks, this film's going to explode, I think, and earn probably over 30 or 40 million if it really stays in the lane. So Jack Quaid stars in this film, and we'll see kind of what happens in the next few weeks with Companion. So before we move on, quick thoughts. Jericho, I want to start with you. Well, who are your biggest box office winners and losers? What do you think? What's going on with the box office in your mind?
The box office is last little big, and I have some stand-up material on movies in today's world. It does seem like the film industry is still dominated by what it has been in the last little bit, by things like franchises and remakes and stuff like that. But I do feel like that those movies are beginning to have an uptick in quality. Sonic 3 was very much a success. Mufasa was very much a success. And, things like, I also like to say, I feel like Jack Quaid is kind of the next indie darling actor. I feel like he's, I feel like he's in the role Matt Damon was and Ben Affleck were in the 90s with like Good Will Hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he keeps getting put in these, not really B-level, but things that aren't thought they're going to succeed as far as they are, such as, other projects he's been in. But I feel like he's that guy coming up.
No, I completely agree. Jake, any thoughts?
I have a few thoughts in terms of live action. So I'm putting some chips on How to Train Your Dragon live action.
He's making more
today.
bets, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm making bets. I'm now hooked. I have a problem. I'm saying that is going to be massive. Like low taper fade massive. If anybody gets that poor joke.
No, I think you're right. I do think that I'm not going to bet against you because I've learned my lesson until something else comes out in the same week, in which case I'll do it just for the meme. But in this moment, I'm not going to. Also,
I think that if they do a number 2, that would be a bad move. if they live action How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Oh, I think that's the point, is to try to do the franchise live action. I don't think that they
And
just do one and stop.
I think that would be a flop. I think that will fail. I could be wrong on that one. That one's kind of like 50-50 for me, but I personally would not do it. I'd leave it at 1 and call it a day.
Before we go to the second segment, I just want everybody in the comments to clown Jake for forgetting to bid on some lights that he really wanted. He said he'd do it during the pod, and he didn't. And he put it in the chat to his not to his benefit, I should say. And now everybody knows. So comment and laugh at him for not getting his lights. Coming up next,
I got tomorrow. There's some coming up.
Coming up next, the latest in the Emilia Perez controversies. After this. Welcome back to Beyond the Screen. You made it to segment 2, which is usually our major news segment. We've got a lot to talk about, specifically about Emilia Perez and some AI, some potential Oscar changes coming in for the near future. So when speaking to the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, star Selena Gomez emphasized that, quote, some of the magic has disappeared when in talking about the film Emilia Perez. But I choose to continue to be proud of what I've done, and I'm just grateful and have and live with no regrets, excuse me. So you might be asking at home, what happened to the most nominated film at the Oscars for one of the biggest stars and one of the internet's most beloved figures to be making these kind of comments about said film? Well, the film has long since been in the public eye with a lot of hate thrown towards the multi-time Oscar-nominated film. But usually these are in regards to the content, to, should this film be nominated because of the quality? You've got some hate in there, but that's just going to come with anything regarding this type of content anyway. However, well, I guess I should give you the film synopsis first. So for those who don't know, who are unfamiliar with Emilia Perez, quote, a Mexican lawyer is offered an unusual job to help a notorious cartel boss retire and transition into living as a woman, fulfilling a long-held desire. So until a week and a half ago, that's all it was people thought that this was a strange, like the story wasn't great, or the performances weren't great, or it shouldn't be nominated 13 times. Then a week and a half ago, journalist Sarah Hagi discovered years-old tweets from star Carlos Sofia Gascon, who plays the titular Emilia Perez, entailing racism, xenophobia, and a lot more. Since then, Gascon has been on the offensive, giving a non-sanctioned by Netflix hour-long interview to CNN in which she claims she has been, quote, crucified and stoned without a trial, and that she is, quote, not racist, and that the tweets were taken out of context. The following day, after all this broke, lead Zoe Saldana was asked about the controversy during a Q&A in London. She states, quote, it makes me really sad because I don't support it and I don't have any tolerance for any negative rhetoric toward people of any group. Not to mention, the director of the film, Jacques Audiard, has reportedly completely severed ties with Gascon as of this moment. Gascon, the first openly transgender performer to be nominated for an Oscar, has labeled this entire media frenzy as a hit piece against the film. But since Audiard's comments, Gascon has completely taken a step back, removed herself from the film. She's not going to be at any red carpet event. She's not going to be at the Oscars. She's staying, I think she's native to not Portugal, but maybe Spain. She's not going to be there. She just said, I'm done with this. I'm backing up and I'm taking a step back, as have the other stars. Saldana and Gomez, outside of their comments, they've kind of separated themselves from the film a bit. And this is at the worst possible time. We're less than 3 weeks away from the Oscars, and this 13-time nominated film, none of its representation is going to show up because of a ill-timed, I'll say it, ill-timed controversy. Fellas, specifically Jericho, actually, because you had a lot cooking when we were talking off of recording. What do we make of this mess?
So with this actress, and it's not so much the actress in particular, it's the way that they went about this. Coming from a world of stand-up comedy, cancellations happen very, very often. And you typically, there's infamous ones such as the Louis C.K. Cancellation and what happened with that. The one I want to talk about in particular is the cancellation of Shane Gillis. And he had a very similar situation where he was cast on Saturday Night Live, this huge event. That Saturday Night Live is kind of like getting that is almost like an Oscar or something in the film industry. It's kind of the peak for people pursuing that path. And he got on there, and somebody dug up from a former podcast him saying some very racial things. and it was almost a cancellation, but the way he went about it was just as tried and true. He was, a lot of people did not exactly like his apology, but it was very much, he was like, I was in the wrong. I'm a comedian. That's the way my mind thinks. That's just how I am. And it was in similar, with this actress Emilia. She went and had this big, press release that Netflix didn't sanction. Shane Gillis did the same thing, and posted a tweet that NBC did not sanction. But it seems it's very much fired back on Emilia. But for Shane, it kind of helped elevate his career in a way. So I feel like there is a way to navigate situations like this that can be a positive and can show human growth in a person. And I feel like she might have just ticked every box in the opposite direction and really just not done what was needed.
Yeah, I don't think there is. You cannot make yourself seem more racist after questionable comments than by saying I'm not racist. It just feels like everything she said after the fact, completely to your point, just was so like, it just, the way she handled it. Because to me, when I was reading this and when kind of following the story, it felt more like she was trying to get ahead of things rather than trying to defend herself, if that makes any sense. It's not like she's claiming she didn't do it, but it's like, that thing when, like, someone's guilty and they give you way too much information. And it's like,
Yes.
you're trying to cover up for your confidence by giving way too much That's what it felt like. It felt like, if to your point, like, if you were a different person at one point and you said some things that you no longer believe, because people do change. Now, do they change that much? That's a question and a debate for another time. But if you said some things that you don't believe now, that you maybe said however long ago to get a reaction, or, just whatever, because sometimes people say things they don't mean, then just be open about that. Say, look, that's not who I am. Like, that's happened before. And at some point, you're going to get canceled either way. But I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me how she handled it. Jake, I could see your brain. You're churning a little bit over there. What you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. Backed into a corner, like a cat. You don't start flinging the razor blades. You don't start fighting back. You kind of just have to. I mean, that's the reality. Somebody put you under a microscope. Your dirt was found. I mean, there's no changing it. No hour-long interview on CNN is going to save you from cancellation. It's how you become a better person from that point on, to the future. So it's all about growth. People it will be inevitable. You'll get canceled. However, you show the growth over time, people will forgive, and everything will always, like, smooth over, unless you're abrasive, you go on the offensive. And I mean, because it's not even like I'm a changed person. It's like, no, I said those things and it was out of context, so you're wrong. And it's like, it's just,
This is a hit piece. Yeah.
yeah, this is, you start claiming things, and then, and from a PR standpoint, like, calling it a hit piece against the film is just one of those extra things, like blaming the customer, something you just don't do.
Yeah. It makes you feel like when they say that they don't, because at the end of the day, like, this is something that I think needs to be really emphasized, is that those types of, I mean, I don't think it really does need to be emphasized, because it should just be common sense. There's just no space for that. Like, we're all trying to live here. We're all trying to, like, I guess it's easy to say it's three white men, but it's also like, we're all trying to make it in this world. We all have things that we are, like, either self-conscious about, or people, like there's no reason to be difficult for one another. And if, you say something again that you don't mean, own up to it, like, so I don't know. It just makes it seem like this person completely meant what they said and they feel bad that they got caught, rather than, I said something that I didn't know the gravity of, or the weight of what I was saying back when I was younger, and I thought it was gone and it came back, but I'm a different, like that. Again, that's a totally, like, I'm not going to say relatable thing, but that is something that is, like, feasible in the human subconscious. Is, yeah, I was a kid, and like I grew up in this area and they weren't that, we didn't have that much in terms of perspective on different people, so we didn't know how offensive that was, and so I said some things online because of the people I was, there's all kinds of reasons, and it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me, her reaction. If all of this wasn't enough, by the way, it was brought back to light that Emilia Perez also used AI to help in the editing process. In an interview at the Cannes Film Festival, sound mixer Cyril Holtz described how the production used the Ukrainian company Respeecher to implement what's called voice cloning. Now, keep in mind Respeecher because you've heard that before on this show, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. So the use of this software by this company was to improve the vocal range of Gascon, whose voice was then blended with French pop star and musical co-writer Camille, therefore improving her vocal range. Respeecher was also revealed recently to have been used in fellow Oscar hopeful The Brutalist to better Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones' Hungarian accents. Now, the Academy is looking into potentially requiring films to disclose if AI was used to even be eligible for the Oscars. Right now, it's kind of a, you can if you want, but you can't use it for this reason. But if you don't want to disclose, you don't have to. Now we're getting Oscar hopefuls, multiple time over nominees, 13, 10 times, 6-time nominations, revealing that for their performances, they did use AI. I think there's a difference between these two, but I want to get your guys' points first. Jake, I'm going to ask you first this time. What do you think?
I don't mind the Academy looking to require the disclosure of AI. Now, do I think it necessarily makes them ineligible if they use it? No, and I don't think that's what they're saying. It's just like you can use AI. Like The Brutalist, I think was a very creative way to do right by Hungary and the accents from that country. This, vocal range wise, it's a little bit further to that line that I think once you cross it, we'll know. Once another film actually does cross it, that will likely push the Oscars over the edge and decide to get rid of it. I don't think these two films are there yet, but so far, I think it's the right thing to do to disclose AI from the get go. Just say, yeah, hey, we used it. This is how we used it. And it's better because of these reasons. Like I said, I don't know what is going to happen in the future where AI is going to completely replace one of the, side characters. I don't know. But at that point, it's probably going to be, you could have hired somebody to play that role. Why did you use AI? And that's probably what it's going to turn out to be.
Jericho?
As someone who is, pursuing a career in the entertainment field, the utilization of AI is kind of creepy, kind of scary because, AI can turn something out in minutes. Whereas, a set for me may take, I've been doing stand up for going on 2 years and I have about 17 to 20 minutes of usable material. So seeing this now encroach this drastically into the world of film is very worrisome. And right now it might just be, altercations of voices and accents. But I mean, I don't think we're very far away from the first AI character. And then that's the first step into the ocean of AI.
Yeah. I think all these things are great points. And I think for me, like, you have to have guidelines for what is usable and what's not, what is an Oscar nominated film. Because you're going to get AI, as you just said, characters made by AI. You're going to get stories written by AI. You're going to eventually at some point, and I've heard this many times over, and I don't think we're there yet. You're going to get to a point to where you put in a prompt to Chat GPT and it can give you an entire movie. You just press play, right? Like, and so limiting that from a filmmaker's perspective, from these high-end production company who have infinite amounts of money and can get a decently, probably a lot better quality AI usage than out of Chat GPT just with their money. However, I think with specifically, we talked about The Brutalist before, and I was on this huge rant a number of weeks ago, Jake, you remember, and it was talking about how there was this double standard in Hollywood about you can use it. As of right now, you don't even have to disclose you use it. But if you do use it, there's this controversy. And it's like with The Brutalist in particular, because I think it's a great point. It was made by the director, and I'm blanking on his name now with The Brutalist, is that this software did not change their performance. And that's true. Changing a vowel here and there to make something sound more realistic to the people that speak that language isn't necessarily altering how Adrian Brody or Felicity Jones portrayed their characters, right? It's just adding more authenticity, which makes it a better film. And, in that instance, if you're going to say you can use AI, sure, make them like they have to tell the world that they used AI. That's fine. But with this, if I can't remember if Emilia Perez, if the actress that plays Emilia Perez, and I'm Gascon, sorry, if she cannot hit that vocal range, that's improving her performance. If you're using AI to take a completely different singer and to clone her voice over Gascon so that she can have a higher pitch, so she can hit a better vocal range and sound better, that is altering her performance. That is taking it, as Jake said, a step way too far in a direction that is like, when do you say she is I know she's up for Best Actress, right? She's a nominated actress, could win the Academy Award. How much of that is based upon her singing in a musical? How much of that musical has been altered through the use of AI with someone else's voice? That's disingenuous, and that's where I draw the line, because like I get it. Like you want the best for the audience, but also this film was made for Oscar season, so in part, this was used to improve the performance of Gascon, which I just think is a complete waste of it's just a waste of time. I don't think that that film, if that's the case, or any films like it, I don't think it should be nominated, because that is not a genuine performance. So to wrap up, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
Does Jericho have any rebuttals to that? Do you agree? What is your take? Where is the line drawn in Jericho's world?
In the terms of AI usage, I mean, like I was just thinking about it, and I was like, I would be okay with AI being used to do something to enhance a scene, but not a performance or the story. So like, and just this is the example that popped into my head. If you somehow used AI to make like a character shooting another character seem more real, more realistic, not having to cut a certain way, not having to cut around it. That's so far fetched. I don't think it would really work well. But something like that, I do think it's okay. Like if you're using it to help a scene in a way that might not be humanly achievable, it's a different story. But using it to change a character in the realm that no longer makes them the actor performing them, like we talked about earlier, people might be going to see films for the character at a certain point. This person is the first transgender person to come up for such a major award like this. That alone is going to draw people to the screen, but then having them fake it almost taints that accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very against the use of AI in many circumstances. I do think it has its place, but not in this regard.
Oh yeah, I mean, and just in my professional life, I use various like graphic design softwares, and a lot of them have AI. And for me, it's like it's nice to throw a prompt in there and to see what it gets as inspiration. Like it's nice to see, like I'll do it 2 or 3 times, or I'll hit the load button 2 or 3 times, and I'll get various pieces from each iteration of whatever prompt. And I might use multiple pieces. And like that idea came from AI. It didn't necessarily like birth from AI, because obviously I put in the prompt, but it inspired me with a look. It inspired me with an element that allowed me to create something better. I think there's a big like use for AI, and especially in storytelling and film. I don't think that there's a problem with that. I don't know. I just think that exactly what you said, when you start altering performances, when does the human element become what gives you an award? If we're talking strictly about the Oscars. I think to recap this, there is no place for any of the comments made, even if it was 10 years ago. And even if it come from a place of somewhere that this person could have grown from, they acted more like they were surprised they got caught than actual remorse for saying the comments. So anyway, I think that's a great place to stop. Coming up next, segment 3, your quick hits. Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Screen. You've made it to segment 3. As always, we want to thank you guys for making it this far. Up to this point, you've made it through 44 minutes of us kind of yelling back and forth and making points about things that we might not necessarily relate to. So thank you so much for just being here and for being a part of what we're trying to build here. Please like, comment, subscribe, just, interact. We would absolutely love to discuss your takes and what you think about film and so on. And it's always crazy that you guys spend your Mondays or however early in the week you listen to us. You spend this time with us, and we're 45 minutes in, and we can't appreciate you more. Sidebar and a little side note, in between segments, Jericho, his internet died. So you might notice a shift in his mic quality, but we want him to stick around, and we are enjoying his opinions. So Jericho, go ahead and initiate the audience on your new sound.
You gotta love that Eastern Kentucky broadband.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to move on, and we're going to go ahead and get through this segment. We have a ton of trailers released this past week. Super Bowl weekend. It's a big week for cinema and for marketing for cinema. So we've had Fantastic Four's First Steps released this past week, the Thunderbolts first trailer, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning released, F1 starring Brad Pitt, Jurassic World Rebirth, Final Destination Bloodlines, and we saw Stitch running on the sidelines as a promotional piece during the Super Bowl. There are a lot more I didn't list here, but from this list, or maybe someone you didn't see here, what are your guys' thoughts? I'm going to start with you, Jake. Which trailer stood out to you?
I would have to say the Fantastic Four. I'm kind of excited for that. Everything I'm seeing is ideal. However, I'm a little worried about Robert Downey Jr. coming in at the end. So we'll see what that happens. See what happens there. See if they did Doctor Doom justice or not. Excited for Stitch. He looked awesome running around. He did look fake. I mean, it was faker than I'll get out, but it's okay. I'm willing to give it a little bit. I am not into Final Destination, so I've seen some of those deaths from other Final Destinations, and it's just not me, man. I don't care for it. It irks me. I'm not into Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise is a Scientologist. That's not related to my opinion on Mission Impossible. I just think it's kind of a funny thing to remind people. It's like, hey, this guy's kind of odd. But that's my take on all those things. Besides, in Jurassic World, it's kind of odd that what's her face? Sorry,
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett. That's kind of odd. Makes me wonder how she's doing on money.
Jericho.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and hit us with your thoughts on these trailers. Which one stood out to you the most?
Oh, this is I'm a super huge Marvel fan, but I am of a controversial opinion. I believe the MCU should have ended at Endgame. This is the first tried and true MCU film. The only other one I'll give a caveat to is Deadpool and Wolverine. This is the first tried and true MCU film I'm excited for since Endgame. So I'm super into that one. I did not know they were making another Jurassic Park movie. I did not know that was coming, but I remember watching the trailer and thinking, oh, this seems like a really good film. And then it dropping that it was Jurassic Park at the end. I was like, oh, okay, this does entice me. It's not enough for me to like go crawling to the theater, but it's something that when it comes out on streaming in some form or fashion, I will watch it.
Yeah.
And then I am a big Disney fan of Stitch. I feel like that character is something that could be a mascot of a production company in the way that, the Minions are, or Mickey Mouse is, or Pikachu is for Nintendo. So I'm always super hyped for Stitch in that regard. In terms of Mission Impossible, same as Jake, I'm not big on Tom Cruise. The Thunderbolts doesn't crazy entice me, but I could be proven wrong. It could be another Guardians of the Galaxy type beat where they get this band of characters that just somehow works together. But yeah, so that's overall what I'm excited for in this coming up trailer lineup.
Yes.
The Thunderbolts remind me of the Suicide Squad. This is Marvel's take on Suicide Squad.
Yeah, and speaking of Thunderbolts, it also something that I think that's kind of being overlooked is that this is Marvel's Superman, who is Sentry, this is our first look at the character Sentry in this
Oh, I know
trailer,
that.
which is really interesting for me. In the trailer, you see him rip off Bucky's like his robot arm, and it just, you know, that's not something we've really seen before. We've seen him lose it, but we've not seen him quite get it ripped off in the middle of battle, at least not to my knowledge. I could be wrong, Jericho. You can fact check me if I'm incorrect. But in terms of films in this lineup that I just kind of read off, the one that really seems to stick out to me the most is Jurassic World, and I'll tell you why. Not just because of its lineup, not just because this is I don't think this is a slight reboot. However, something that's really interesting to me is that if you ever read the book in comparison to the original Jurassic Park, their world's different. The original Jurassic Park novel is terrifying. It's meant to be scary. And Steven Spielberg, who is a fantastic creator in any genre, decided not to lean that way. So there's a scene that's going to be in Rebirth that was in the book and has been excluded from every Jurassic film up to this point, and I am really intrigued to see how that plays out and how they adapt the books more. So in terms of trailers, I was the most intrigued by Jurassic World. Thunderbolts Sentry seems like a really interesting on like live action character for Marvel, someone who can also carry the banner for them as they move into a new era, bringing back old faces, as Jake mentioned with RDJ and Fantastic Four First Steps. Moving down the line, Jericho, Back to the Future creator on a potential fourth installment. He says, F you, or screw you, we're going to keep this PG here on this show. Creator Bob Gale was asked behind the scenes at the Saturn Awards about what dreams he could have after such a successful franchise or a run of films in his career. He says, quote, I'm having the best third act of life that anyone could imagine. People always say, well, when are you guys going to go or to do Back to the Future 4? And we say, F you. You can quote me on that. Gale furthered his point by saying, quote, we made 3 terrific movies and people kept asking for more, so we made Back to the Future the musical. We're taking it around the world. Jericho, thoughts on Bob Gale?
That gives me so much respect for that man. I love, there's obviously every single franchise is milked dry. And I feel like Back to the Future, I don't know if this is a hot take or if this is kind of the typical opinion. I feel like Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3 is the best trilogy of films that has been made. And not wanting to ruin that reputation or spoil what that franchise has created, I feel like that's what I would want to be as a creator, as a director. I wouldn't want to let a sleeping dog lie, essentially, at a certain point. That is perfect. That's the answer I wish a lot more production companies had.
Yeah, let the story be what it is. It's almost a perfect franchise. I completely agree. Any further comments before we move on?
No.
Moving down the line, Jake, Hasbro announces a Magic the Gathering film with an extended TV series. The legendary toy company is teaming up with the legendary film company, Legendary Pictures, to create a cinematic universe similar to the Dune franchise, starting with a major motion picture and expanding that universe with a TV series. Jake, what potential does this franchise have?
Well, considering we saw, I believe, the Snake Eyes movie kind of flop, and then Dungeons and Dragons, I think box office it flopped. It grossed 208 million on a 150 million budget, so it was like, like it didn't really break any numbers there. So Hasbro's movies, other than Transformers, and I'm still not a fan of like the later ones. It's kind of iffy, So you're gonna be playing off of the fan base of Magic the Gathering, and is that fan base strong enough and wide enough to support a movie? And we don't know what the budget is, but it could be a lot. And that's what makes me weary is how much budget we working with, and will an audience support that? Because I think you're going to have a hard time converting those who don't already play Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And that audience you're talking about is me. I don't know a lot about Magic. I'm not really a big card enthusiast or card game enthusiast. So I think that there's a ton in this franchise that can be explored. But I think to your point, and something, and I would love for you to expound upon this if you have more. I feel like as long as this has a direction, because if they're talking about or TV franchises after a movie, they've already got to have a story in mind. So as long as there's a point every single time we see, or like there's something on our screen from this franchise, I think it's got every reason to be successful.
Yeah.
As
Go ahead, Jericho.
as someone who plays Magic the Gathering, I think this might be an uphill battle for them.
Interesting. Explain.
They have a story built around it, and just the way that the world works, and also kind of the community that is around Magic the Gathering. I feel like, and this might be a hot take, and this might offend some people. I feel like with the community of some of the, not some of the people, not all of them, that is around Magic the Gathering, you could have a perfect movie and them say it was like a Sharknado type movie. It was just extremely bad.
Sharknado had 8 films.
Yeah, but
So, but yeah, they are definitely, and I would say that they overlap with the Star Wars snobs. I would say a lot of Star Wars snobs are probably also Magic the Gathering players and would have a very strong opinion about both franchises.
Yeah. Any further comments about Magic?
I'm done.
All right, going back to you, Jericho. Moving down the line, Deadpool creator ditches Marvel after red carpet shenanigans. Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld quits Marvel after more than 30 years with the publisher. On the Robservations podcast, which is an amazing name that I wish I would have thought of if my name was Rob. And in a follow-up interview in an interview with THR, excuse me, Liefeld describes how this entire event started at last summer's Deadpool and Wolverine premiere. The creator outlined how he and his family were not invited to the after party, and he felt slighted by the Marvel brass. Overall, Liefeld claims, quote, Kevin Feige does not treat comic book creators well, which turned a lot of heads because that is not what people describe Kevin Feige like. Jericho, what are your thoughts on Marvel potentially alienating creators or just this entire scenario?
I mean, there's at a certain point, yeah. I am one of the people that I feel like Kevin Feige is the one who is going out of his way to make sure the comic books are represented front and center. One conversation I've seen on the internet quite a lot is the costumes for the upcoming Fantastic Four film and how comic accurate they are. And with Deadpool and Wolverine, how we finally got the comic accurate Wolverine suit. I don't know if maybe not I don't know if giving that is giving props to the comic writers, but I feel like it would be. So I feel like there's more to this story than is being let on.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. It just seems a little odd that this guy who does so much fan service all of a sudden just doesn't treat the creators of these stories very well. That's the first time I've heard, anyway, in my memory, of Feige not treating a creator like to the best of his ability.
The only other instance I may have, and it might not have, I don't think it was Feige, I think it was Disney, is the whole Scarlett Johansson Black Widow being dropped early on streaming.
Yeah.
That's the only other issue I can think about, and I doubt that was Feige.
Yeah, Jake, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think there's something else. Also, I'm not hearing about any of the other things that have happened since what do you say last summer's the premiere and this after party. He quit with a tenure of more than 30 years because he wasn't invited to a party. I think there's definitely more going on. I would like to know what else because he said this entire event started at last summer. So there's got to be more things since last summer. And then because it's not just not being invited to a party. Come on. Like you're not leaving Marvel because Marvel's a big name, dude. You're not giving up your seat at Marvel because you weren't invited to a party. So I don't know. There's definitely something else. And it makes me wonder what Rob's kind of keeping to himself because I mean you can complain so much until I learn both sides of the story. What else happened? How else is Feige doing you wrong? And then I'll make my opinion. But from so far, Kevin Feige has only ever done positive towards the comic book creators.
I
I'm gonna need to
almost
see some more.
I almost wonder what how they treated him when they did these premieres, because it's like obviously this guy's had many a backstory and many an after party with Marvel because he insinuated in at least or it was insinuated in the article that we're sourcing from here that he was used to going to these. Now whether that's with Disney or with Fox, it doesn't really describe, but it seems to insinuate that with Kevin Feige and with the Marvel brass and with Disney, I almost wonder if this is a ego trip. Like this is a guy who I created this character, and this is only here because of me, and then I didn't get invited, and now boo, and he's all angry. But the thing is, at this point, they could do whatever they want with the character. It's like, I guess know your role a little bit, Rob. like they don't need you.
And that's basically how Disney runs their company. It's like we don't need you. Like,
Yeah.
We'll throw whoever we want into that suit and we'll have him say whatever he says.
This is like the opposite of like, usually it's like, let creators create and big production companies need to stop getting in the way of whatever. This is like the writer or the creator putting the foot in their mouth, which is not a situation we usually find ourselves in.
I will just say I need more. I'm not going to paint Rob as a
very good point.
A negative individual. I need to know more than just not being invited to an after party. Because number one, yeah, Fox versus Disney. Marvel brass means something different after that acquisition. So him feeling slighted by Marvel brass could be completely different people. And then on top of that, it's kind of like, what else happened? Because I know it wasn't just the party.
Yeah. Jericho, any final thoughts on this topic?
It is one of those things that it makes me worry about. I mean, it's one thing a lot of people are questioning about the future of Deadpool in the MCU is now having a creator leave. So that is one thing that I do speculate. I don't have any exact opinions on it now, but it is something I'll be keeping an eye on as, the months and years go by.
Yeah. And on that note, I think that's a perfect opportunity to move on to our final topic of discussion. And Jake, this one's coming your way. Harrison Ford had nothing but positive remarks towards Troy Baker and his performance as Indiana Jones in the Great Circle video game. Now, if you know anything about Troy Baker, he's a renowned voice artist. He is most notably known outside of Indiana Jones as Joel from The Last of Us. He's a very proficient voice actor. When asked about what he thought about Troy, he specifically said, he being Harrison Ford, said, quote, "You don't need artificial intelligence to steal my soul. You can already do it for nickels and dimes with good ideas and talent. Baker did a brilliant job, and it didn't take AI to do it." Says Baker also did, currently at the Game Awards, he continued to say, hey, he did fantastic. Ford also describes how he doesn't care that the Dial of Destiny flopped at the box office. Just a little sidebar that he went while he was on a tangent. Jake, what should the future of Indiana Jones be inevitably when Harrison Ford moves on from the role?
I mean, it's another one of those franchises that, yeah, I mean, if there's a story, maybe, but how many Indiana Jones movies? Because we're going to see it turn into, well, Indiana Jones was my dad. Now I'm, and he has a son, but I don't remember what his son's name is.
I'm Montana Jones.
Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, Shia LaBeouf plays him. Whatever it is. Yeah, so it's another one. I think it's a little milked. Harrison Ford, obviously, he made Indiana Jones. Like that's him. That's who he's. Besides Han Solo, it's Indiana Jones. So a video game is a little different, and that's why we can say that Baker did a great job. But they used Harrison Ford's likeness. I mean, I'm looking at the image right now, and that just looks like Harrison Ford more than it does Baker.
Mm-hmm.
So he's right. It didn't take AI to do it. It took nickels and dimes, good ideas, and talent to replace him. However, I know who the graphics guy was thinking of when he designed the character. So I don't know. The future without Harrison Ford, I could do without more Indiana Joneses. Would be my take.
I have an interesting take that might back up what you're saying, but Jericho, I want to get your thoughts on this.
I mean, I go back to what I said with the Back to the Future thing. Is I feel like the video game is a different aspect. I do want to point that out. I'm glad that they went that route, but to the Dial of Destiny is like at a certain point, you're milking the cow dry, and you're gonna ruin what you have. And I feel like, again, the video game was a different direction. I think that might be the way to go in some of these cases, or the musical as Back to the Future did. But I kind of have to agree. Now, the actor did a fantastic role, and that coming from Harrison Ford does seem to be very big props, because a lot of times I see a lot of negative Nancy out of Harrison Ford, so that's got to be big props in his eyes. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that maybe they're going a different direction with that cash cow.
Yeah, I think my point with this whole thing, and this is going to be the end of the show. We'll do final remarks right after this, but just kind of to round out this topic, I think post Harrison Ford, because he's in his 80s. We're not going to have Harrison Ford forever. He's not going to be able to play the character that he plays for the next 30 years. That's just not possible. Once Harrison Ford puts the hat up, once he hangs up his boots, it's time to retire Indiana Jones. I don't think that there's any way. Could you continue the universe in some way and have Indiana Jones have inspired another character? Yeah, sure. Like whatever. If you want to expound upon the world that Indiana Jones could have influenced, yeah, you could bring back Shia LaBeouf and you could do whatever. And I'm sure that's a positive way to do it. And I'm not talking about the video games, because the video games are a lot different. That's just another way, an avenue that is successful in terms of actually keeping the character around. And I worry about that even being kind of beating a dead horse. I think that, exactly to your point, unless you're creating a whole new character, and unless you're going a certain roundabout way to keep the universe going, Indiana Jones should die with Harrison Ford. And Harrison Ford has said that for a while now. He's like, there is no replacing me. And I think he's right, because when you think of Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, this isn't like 007, where 007, you can make whatever conspiracy theory you want. They've had however many actors play the character now. This isn't like that. You've had one guy do it for the last 40 years. Hang up the boots when it's done. And that is our show. Any final thoughts, comments you want to tell the people at home?
Jericho?
I think kind of a going theme with this episode is know when to retire, and go with that.
Yeah,
so I feel like that
you're old. Hang them up.
Exactly. And it's not even a you're old, hang it up. It's you did such a good job, don't ruin it.
I completely agree. Jake?
Yeah, so tell us how we did on this podcast, and tell us if we're milking the dead cow.
Again, I reiterate, you're old. Hang them up. Anyway.
Dude, I'm the youngest one here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, before you continue, before you start exposing people, I'm going to end the episode here. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you, guys.